When the FBI kicks in the door at 4 a.m., you have exactly 12 seconds before they get to the first floor. That's just enough time to push one button, the same red button that erases 3 years of your life in a split second. I was known on the Darknet as Conduit. In those 3 years, more than $10 million in dirty money passed through my shadow wash network. But the story started much earlier, with the simple curiosity of a 12-year-old kid who just wanted to understand how computers worked. It was February 2018. I was 14, and my dad brought home an old Dell Optiplex from work. "It's a shame to throw it away. Maybe my son could use it for his studies," he told my mom. He didn't know he was signing my judgment. For the first few months, I just played old games and surfed the internet. But by the summer, I started to be drawn deeper. I found programming forums, downloaded the first Python tutorials, and started to learn about Linux. My peers were playing football, and I was sitting in the basement learning how to hack into my neighbor's Wi-Fi. By the autumn of 2018, I already knew what Tor was and accidentally stumbled upon my first Darknet marketplace. Not for shopping, just out of curiosity, but what I saw there turned my understanding of the internet upside down. It was a whole world hidden from ordinary people, a world where people traded everything imaginable and remained completely anonymous. On the morning of the 22nd of February 2019, I did my first real hack. The target was the database of a local car repair shop. Nothing serious, just wanted to see if it would work. I did it in 40 minutes. I downloaded all their files, went through them, and then just deleted them from myself. At the time, I didn't know what to do with the stolen information. But the adrenaline was incredible. The feeling of power, of control, of being able to penetrate where others cannot enter. It was more addictive than any drug. By the summer of 2019, I was already making my first money by hacking social media accounts on demand. The sums were ridiculous, from $20 to $50 per account, but for a 15-year-old teenager, it was a lot of money. My parents thought I was a part-time computer tutor. The real twist came in the autumn of 2020, when I met a man under the nickname Architect on one of the hacker forums. He offered me a job, not just one-off hacks, but a permanent partnership. "You've got talent, kid," he wrote to me in a private chat, "but you're wasting it on little things." Architect taught me the main rule of the Darknet: never work directly with clients. There should always be intermediaries, several layers of protection between you and those who end up getting the results. "Once you become visible," he used to say, "you're already dead." By the end of 2020, I was no longer just a lone hacker. I was studying money laundering schemes, understanding cryptocurrencies, building my own secure communication channels. And that's when I had the idea that would turn into Shadow Wash 2 years later. But first I needed to understand one simple thing: the honest ones don't survive on the Darknet. Honesty on the Darknet is a luxury you can't afford. I realized this on January 12, 2021, when I betrayed a man for the first time. His name was Crypto King, and he was my first real partner after Architect. We met on a forum where he was looking for a hacker to hack into the payment system of a small online casino. The amount was serious: $15,000 for the job, plus 10% of the stolen goods. The hack took me 3 weeks. The casino was using an outdated version of the payment system with a security hole that I had learned about from Architect. By the beginning of February, we had $340,000 in bitcoins in a shared wallet. Everything was going according to plan until Crypto King suggested a slight change in terms and conditions. "Listen, kid," he wrote to me on the 8th of February in an encrypted chat. "What if we don't stop? I've got contacts at 3 other casinos. We could set up a permanent scheme." The idea was tempting, but something made me wary. Crypto King was too quick to offer expansion of the operation, too easy to take risks. Architect always said, when a partner gets greedy, it's time to get rid of him. I started digging for information about Crypto King through people I know on forums. What I found out made my blood turn to ice. It turned out that 3 months ago, he had worked with a couple of hackers from Germany on a similar scheme. The operation failed, the Germans were arrested, and Crypto King disappeared with all the money. On the 17th of February 2021, I made a decision that changed me forever. Instead of just breaking the partnership, I did what any Darknet survivor would do. I struck first. I transferred all the money from our shared wallet to my own addresses, at the same time sending to the forum administration a compiled dossier on Crypto King with evidence of his previous scams. An hour later, his account was locked. My share was supposed to be about $50,000. Instead, I got the full $340,000. I justified myself by saying that he was preparing to screw me over, but the truth was simpler. I simply chose money over principles. That money became the seed money for Shadow Wash. In the spring of 2021, I started looking into the cryptocurrency laundering market. Most of the services worked on the same principle. Technological mixers that mixed bitcoins between thousands of addresses, making transactions untraceable. But they all had one problem. They left digital footprints. Law enforcement got smarter and smarter at analyzing blockchain. Every month, major mixers were shut down, administrators were arrested, and millions were confiscated. I needed a fundamentally different approach. The idea came to me on the 23rd of June, 2021, when I was reading the news about another shutdown of Bitcoin Fog, one of the oldest mixers on the Darknet. Police traced the transactions through sophisticated blockchain analysis algorithms. What if we take technology out of the equation altogether? I thought. Instead of automatic mixers, live people. Instead of complex algorithms, simple human chains. The client sends bitcoins, dropshippers cash them out via ATMs and cards. Coordinators collect the cash and give it to the client. No servers to confiscate, no algorithms to analyze. Only people who can be bought and cashed that cannot be traced. By August 2021, I had a plan for Shadow Wash and enough money to launch it. All I had to do was find the people. I found my first coordinator on the local Bitcoins forum. His name was Phoenix, and he had been cashing cryptocurrencies in small amounts for 2 years already. When I offered him a permanent job with a guaranteed income of $3,000 a month, he agreed without hesitation. The cardinal rule, I told him in our first conversation, you don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. On the 3rd of September 2021, we conducted our first test transaction. $5,000 in bitcoins turned into cash in 48 hours. The commission was 15%, which is much lower than that of our competitors. Shadow Wash was born. But I didn't know yet that every success on the Darknet brings you closer to your own demise. Money on the Darknet smells of fear, and by the end of 2021, that smell was following me everywhere. In 3 months of operation, Shadow Wash has already processed $200,000. Phoenix was doing well in its own territory, the East Coast. But the requests were coming in from all over the country. I needed to scale, which meant finding new coordinators. I found the second person in my network by accident. On the 15th of November 2021 on the Black Market Forum, there was an announcement. Looking for a permanent job in caching, 3 years experience, own drop team in Texas. The author signed his name as Viper. I researched his history on the forum for 2 days. Clean reputation, positive reviews, no failures. But most importantly, he was already working with a team. That meant a ready-made infrastructure. Our first meeting in the encrypted chat room was on the 18th of November. What do you suggest? His first question was businesslike. Steady flow of clients, $4,000 base salary plus a percentage of sales. Your territory is every state from Texas to California. Commission? 15% total, of which 8% to you and your dropships, 7% to me for clients and coordination. The silence lasted 5 minutes. Then came the reply. Deal. By Christmas 2021, I had 2 regional coordinators and a combined turnover of $500,000. But the real breakthrough came in January 2022, when I was approached by a client who changed everything. His nickname was simply Client 7, but the size of the bid spoke for itself. $2 million in bitcoins needed to be turned into cash in a fortnight, the largest transaction in Shadow Wash history. Where does that kind of money come from? I asked in the chat room. It's better not to know. Can you handle it or not? I realized that it was either a breakthrough or a trap, but the sum was too tempting. My share was $300,000. For such an operation, I needed additional people. Through Phoenix, I found a coordinator in Chicago, a girl called Shade, who specialized in working with shell companies. Through Virek, I found a specialist in international translations from Miami. By February 2022, my network looked like a real corporation. 4 regional coordinators, each with their own dropship team, a total staff of about 40 people across the country. The Client 7 transaction took 12 days. We split the $2 million into hundreds of small transactions, passed it through dozens of ATMs and cards in different states, and collected the cash through a network of shell companies. Everything went off without a single glitch. When the last bag of money was handed over to the client, I realized Shadow Wash is no longer a startup. It's an industrial-scale money laundering machine. But success on the Darknet is a two-way street. The more money you make, the more people pay attention to you, and not just customers. On the 5th of March 2022, Phoenix sent me a message that made my hands shake. Someone is asking questions about Shadow Wash on the forum. A user with a new account, but the questions are too specific. I checked the forum. The user was interested in our rates, geography of work, volume of operations. The questions looked like they were from a potential client, but something in their wording was alarming. Too professional for a rookie, Viper wrote to me the same day. I made a decision that saved my life. A complete change in operational security. New servers, new communication channels, new aliases for all the coordinators. After a week, new investor disappeared from the forum without making a single order. By the summer of 2022, Shadow Wash was processing over $1 million a month. I had 2 houses in different states, fake IDs in 3 names, and enough money to disappear at a moment's notice. But I couldn't stop. Money, power, the feeling of controlling an entire shadow empire, it was more addictive than any drug. On the 1st of August 2022, I was approached by the largest client in the history of the service. The request was for $5 million. I didn't know yet that this was the beginning of the end. $5 million isn't just money. It's the point of no return, after which you either become a Darknet legend or disappear forever. Client appeared on the 1st of August 2022 under the nickname Kingmaker. The account is old, the reputation is impeccable, but the application was insane even by Shadow Wash standards. I need to clear $5 million in a month. Can you handle it? His first message was extremely succinct. I stared at the screen for half an hour, rereading the figure. My share was $750, 000 more than I had earned in the entire previous year. Source, I wrote. It's better not to know, but I guarantee you it's not FBI or a trap. Just a business that needs to be made invisible. For such an operation, I needed to double the network. By the end of August, Shadow Wash had 60 people, 6 regional coordinators, each with a team of 8 drops. The geography covered the entire country, from New York to Los Angeles. I developed a new scheme specifically for Kingmaker. The money was split into thousands of microtransactions of $2,000, $5,000 each. Each transaction went through a chain of 3 drops in different states. The first would receive the bitcoins and cash out through ATMs. The second was taking the cash and transferring via money orders. The third would receive the remittances and transfer the final amount to the customer. The operation started on August 15, 2022. The first week went perfectly. 1.2 million were successfully processed without a single glitch. Coordinators reported stable work. Dropshippers got their percentages. The client was happy with the speed. But in the second week, the weirdness started. On the 22nd of August, Phoenix sent a disturbing message. One of my dropships in Boston says he's being followed. Saw the same car 3 days in a row. I told them to temporarily exclude this dropper from operations, but 2 days later, similar reports came in from Viper from Texas and our man in Miami. Either we have mass paranoia or someone is actually conducting surveillance. Shade from Chicago wrote to me. On the 25th of August, I decided to suspend the operation for 48 hours to analyze the situation. Kingmaker was not happy. I have tight deadlines. Every day of delay costs me money. Safety is more important than speed, I replied, but doubt gnawed at me inside. What if this is just paranoia? What if I'm losing my biggest client because of my fears? The reply came at 3:47 a.m. on August 27th. Phoenix sent an urgent message. Dropped in Philly. Full search took computers and phones. My heart stopped. If they have phones, they have correspondence. If there's correspondence, they can trace the connections. I spent the next 6 hours panicking, wiping servers, wiping all communication channels, alerting coordinators. By noon, the entire Shadowwash infrastructure was destroyed and rebuilt from scratch, but it was too late. On the 28th of August, they arrested a dropout in Houston. On the 29th, a coordinator in Denver. Next, 3 more in Los Angeles. I realized these weren't random raids. Someone was methodically taking my network apart piece by piece. On the 31st of August, Kingmaker sent a final message. The operation is canceled. You can keep the money for the already processed part. I stared at this message and it hit me. Too convenient, too timely. Kingmaker showed up just when my network had reached its maximum size, offered just the right amount of money to make me expand as much as possible, and disappeared just as the arrest started. Kingmaker wasn't a client. He was a decoy. Someone had spent months trying to get me to grow the net to a size where it could be effectively covered. Used my greed against myself. On the 1st of September 2022, I made the hardest decision of my life, to close Shadowwash. I sent out the same message to all the remaining coordinators. Operation terminated permanently, destroy all traces, change identities, disappear. I then wiped all servers, destroyed all wallets, deleted all accounts. Shadowwash has processed over $12 million in 2 years. My share was almost $2 million, but the price was too high. Half my people were in jail, and I was being hunted by the best analysts in the world. On the 3rd of September, I left my home for the last time, knowing that Conduit had died. Now I had to learn to live with a new name in a new world. But the hunters were already on my trail, and I didn't have much time left.